Welcome back to the series on literary criticism. Yesterday I had started talking about Horace and we discussed his work Ars Poetica. We had completed Poesis and today we are going to discuss about Poema and Poeta. So let's begin. Now to begin with Poema. Poema means the form of the poem, okay? And Horace's view, I have summed it up into 5 different points. In the first point, Horace talks about composition. He said that composing should be based on old familiar stories, already known stories. Why? When the audience will witness something happening in front of them that they are already aware of, their previous learning will help them to understand what is going on in front of them better, and they will be able to retain it for a longer period of time and they will be able to enjoy it more. Now, for instance, when somebody tells you about a person whom you already know, you kind of take interest in that because you know the person, you know the third person whom this person is talking to you. But if this second person talks to you about an anonymous person, a stranger whom you don't know, so you won't be showing that much interest. So that is why he said that composing should be based on old familiar stories. Such stories must be chosen that is already known to the audience. In the second part, he says it must start with media res. What is media res? In middle of a thing. Now, for instance, the background or the backdrop of the story that is going on, that background should be such that has already happened or that is already taking place, and this new story comes in between and starts. For example, the works Iliad and Odyssey had a background of the Trojan War. So he says things must go it must create some flashback to the audiences. Point number 3, he talks about representation of the actions on the stage. Horace says that all the actions, it should not be represented on the stage. Instead, certain actions should only be reported. What kind of actions must be reported? The actions that are disturbing. For example, a murder scene. Now, let's take the example of the play Othello, okay? In Othello, Othello murdered Desdemona, his wife, in a fit of anger and jealousy. And this action of murdering someone, okay, this should not be presented to the audience in front of on the stage. Instead, it should be done behind the stage, and it should be simply reported to the audience that this has happened to Desdemona. Okay, why? Because ugly things will disturb the audience, and we don't want the audience to be disturbed. Now, point number 4, he talks about that the limits. Okay, he says a work must have 5 acts, 1 scene, and 3 characters to the maximum. And then finally, he says that God should not intervene unnecessary, but only when required. Now, what used to happen is that during the works of those times, let's take an example of there is a hero and then there is a villain, okay, and a battle has been fought between the two. Now, what happens? Audiences are witnessing that the hero is about to die because the villain is more powerful, the villain has more weapons and has a better strategy, okay? So the hero is about to die, he's about to lose the battle. But then suddenly the writer, what will a writer do? The writer will introduce God intervening in between and causing an earthquake, and because of which a tree falls upon the villain and the villain dies. So this unnecessary interference of gods, that should not be done. Let us start with Poeta. In Poeta, Horace talks about the 5 characteristics that a poet must have, or the poem must have, in order to be good. The first point he says is that poet must keep his work before publishing it for like a period of 10 years. That is, if you're writing a poem in 2020, this year, you should not publish it in the same year. Instead, you should wait for a period of 10 years and publish it in the year 2030. Why so? Horace believed that keeping a work for a period of 10 years will actually help the poet to support the change of view that will happen with the change of time, with that period of time. Okay? Then the second point, he says that the function of poetry is to teach and to delight. He gives the term, please excuse my pronunciation, he says dulci et utile or dulci et utile, which means sweet and useful. And then in the third point, he compares painting and poetry. He says both are the same. And for this statement, he gives this term, ut purtura poesis. Ut purtura poesis. And then in the fourth point, he says minor faults in the work can be forgiven, as good Homer notes. And then finally he says, he quotes, I'm quoting it, I am not the most original nor the most inspired of the poets. Now here he actually criticizes himself, okay? Horace is a critic of himself and he mocks himself and say that I am not the most original nor the most inspired one, but obviously I use my creativity and I don't simply merely copy my ancestors. So that's it. Talking about the questions that came, it was just asked, the title was given Ars Poetica and it was asked who has written Ars Poetica. It is written by Horace. And the meaning of dulci et utile and ut purtura poesis, that was being asked. So dulci et utile means sweet and useful, and ut purtura poesis means both are same. So that is poetry and painting are same. Okay, so that's it. That's all about Horace. Tomorrow we will be starting with Longinus. Thank you.